Hello and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, Episode 8, Thursday, August 23rd, 2018.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
Jane Thaddeus-Turk, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back to Book of the Mouse Club, Episode 8. I'm Courtney, and I'm joined by my co-host, Emily.
Hey there, Courtney. Really excited for today.
Hey, well, we're super excited because we have a special guest today. We're joined by Kevin Perjurer, host of the Defunctland and Defunct TV series on YouTube, and author of his first book, Defunctland: Guide to the Magic Kingdom. The Defunctland series dives deep into the history of theme park attractions that are no longer around, and his new book is no exception. The book is a blend of fact, fiction, fantasy, and fun. Kevin's guide is unapologetically real, but surprisingly sentimental at times, and we're excited to have a chance to discuss it. Thank you so much for joining us, Kevin.
Thank you for having me. That was such a nice intro. I'm blushing.
Thank you. I'm glad my English degree paid off in some way.
Every day, in every conversation, and just you're getting a little bit there.
Of course. Well, thank you so much. So I kind of teased what Defunctland is, but do you want to go ahead and describe it in your own words?
Defunctland is a Ponzi scheme. Defunctland is a YouTube channel, podcast, VR concept project, and book now, where I dive deep, as you said, into old theme park rides, themed experiences, and now we do television shows that are, more highly themed television shows. So if it has a lot of theming, if it has animatronics, if it has puppets, if it has it's a very three-dimensional themed experience, and it's no longer exists, I probably talk about it on the show. So and I do that through a series of documentaries through the Defunctland series, where I talk about the themed entertainment and theme parks. On season 2 of that right now, that's going really great. Defunct TV, which is the spinoff, that's the one that looks at TV shows. The podcast, where it's a mix of things. I talk to people in the theme park industry. I talk to people that used to work at the old experiences or old television hosts. And then the VR project is we're trying to see what it would be like if we tried to bring some of these back in VR. And and the book, of course, is what we're going to talk about today. So it's a multifaceted operation, but it's fun. So
yes, and definitely worth checking out. We're both big fans. It's a really great trip down memory lane. I know, a lot of people are probably interested in the theme park, but even the TV, the Bear in the Big Blue House episode, I was like, oh, it's my childhood. Definitely a great reminder.
Yeah, that was a really fun episode to do. That probably is my, every video, the comments you get, not 50% of them are just very negative because it's YouTube. But that video was more like 60% of them were positive, so I knew I made a good video when only 4 out of 10 people were saying this is bad. But that one was, but honestly, the response on that one was just like that was overwhelming how people loved that show. So, but yeah, just stuff like that is so fun to do, just to bring back some memories and really bring a sort of closure to these things that no longer exist.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did this project get started? What's your experience going to a bunch of theme parks or seeing these shows that inspired you to do this?
Well, my experience, growing up, I grew up in the Midwest. I don't mention this in the book that often, but I do mention this on my podcast. I grew up in the Midwest, where I was, dead in the center between the two theme park capitals of the United States. I mean, Orlando, of course, has way more theme parks, but of course, California has Disneyland and Knott's and all those. So I got to go to those enough to be interested in them because I was fortunate that I could travel, but I did not have the luxury that some children have of being so close that they go every year or go every month. And so a lot of that came a lot of my interest in it came later in life, after I'd grown up, and just, thinking back on those experiences, and then, just researching. And it wasn't, going to the parks is not always my favorite thing to do. I almost like talking about the development more. But that's also the reason that I'm a terrible movie watcher, is I like to know more about how the movie was made rather than watching the movie itself.
I do that too. I get so many people do not like watching movies with me because I ask questions aloud while I'm watching. I do the same thing.
Well, great. Well, then we should watch movies together, and yeah, there you go. But so just like that, it's going to the theme parks fun, and it's great to experience the attractions, especially after they close and you had experienced it. But at the same time, it's just I've been so interested in the background, and I found the world of theme parks to be the most fascinating because, I, as someone that really loves film and does a lot of film production, I always thought film, I loved it so much because it was the last medium. It was the final step. Like, it was the final frontier of art, because you combine everything. You combine illustrations, video, audio, everything, music into one medium. But that's not true, because theme parks are 4D, 3D spaces with all of those things and more. So to create that is like the final medium of immersion, of you're actually there and you're building a world around you. And so just that alone triggered this, interest in me. And then to find out that some things no longer exist anymore, and it's and it can never exist again, is so much different than all other art forms. And I mentioned this also, is just that, like, movies, even if a movie was produced in 1960, you can still watch it. But if a theme park ride closed last year, you'll never get to experience that again, like, ever. And so that finality is always interesting, and I think that's what's compelling to a lot of people, is the idea that these things are no longer in existence, and you can't have them.
I feel like, there's certain, like, a nostalgia element. I loved Alien Encounter, so it's great to watch that. But then attractions that I necessarily didn't get to experience, it's fun to still dive into those and pull from that. So it's a nice balance.
And the same thing with me, I rarely talk about what rides I've ridden, because it doesn't really matter as far as what specific rides I've been on. It's more of just getting that full, if you have the full historical context and you've seen enough and you've consumed enough, what that ride was. Because especially if it's an old ride, there really wasn't that much to experience on some of these. Like Snow White's Scary Adventures, you didn't even see much when it was open, because it was so dark. I should say the original Snow White's Adventures. You didn't see as much as when it was open. Now, given a new ride, so like here, an example, that I just went to Walt Disney World and I rode Pandora, Flight of Pandoran, Flight of Passage, Pandoran. That's an example of a ride that's like, you have to ride it. You can watch a ride through and you won't understand the genius of it. And so, but luckily, most of the rides that I talk about, you can get a lot of that just by showing what it looked like. But again, there will never be that full immersion again. You'll never get that full experience, which is so disappointing. But also, that's what makes it so compelling. And
you even dive into things that didn't necessarily come to fruition. Like the Disney's America one was a lengthy episode, but so worth it because there's so much to explore there. So that was fascinating as well.
Yeah, also things that don't come to fruition because you're imagining think it could go. And I mean, that's how also, that's why a lot of books are successful. And this isn't, of course, how I wrote my book, mainly narrative books. And you probably talk about this all the time, considering this is a book podcast. But, if you leave enough open to where the reader can be creative, then you've opened up so much more interest from a wide variety of people, rather than not allowing them any wiggle room to paint their own picture. And that's what makes canceled things also very interesting, because you get to decide what that park looks like because you have no reference.
Yeah.
You've never seen it. I can show you the layout, but your mind gets to go wild, and that increases engagement with the audience. So, but that I don't do that often. That was actually a stepping stone to Club Disney, and now Disney Quest. So I'm trying to amass the season is Disney in the 90s, or Disney in the 90s. So and then who knows what next season will be.
Very fun. So how did you go from having this YouTube series and podcasting and then deciding to turn it into a book?
One big mistake.
I loved
A
how
huge
honest
miscalculation
you were
on my part.
in your intro about I am not a reader or a writer, but here we are.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a huge miscalculation. First of all, self-publishing is not easy at all, especially well, we can get into that production side if you want, but the which actually might fit really well. Most of the podcasts are like Disney podcasts that I've been on talking about the book, so I can actually talk about the physical book.
Yeah, one of our questions is describe the publishing process, because I knew this came from more of like an Indiegogo Kickstarter. It's not your traditional, oh, I found an editor and here we are.
Right. Yeah, that would have been smart, right? No, but I'll answer the first question. Is I was talking to a friend of mine, and this is a jack of all trades, sort of listens to a lot of podcasts kind of guy, and he was like, I was listening to this marketing podcast. You need to create a book to extend your a coffee table book, and I was like, that's a bad idea. I have a better idea. I'm gonna make a book. But not coffee table, but I'm going to make a book about something completely different, because that is a good idea to extend the brand. The only problem with coffee table books is that they're largely picture based, and pictures are copyrighted. And so you really, if I made it's really difficult for me to make a Disney coffee table book without any permission. But right, exactly. And so, what I can do is what I did in the book, which is create artistic, interpretations of certain aspects of the ride. Still copyrighted, a little more leeway, especially considering how much I criticize them, and if they try to shut it down, that is a violation of my free speech. No, but yeah, so it was just one of those things that I was like, this is a great way to extend the brand. I think another thing that really got me to do it is I wanted to give some of the smaller attractions more focus. So I can do a 35-minute video about Disney's America because there's so much there, even though it doesn't exist. But I can't do even a 3-minute video about the Penny Arcade, because that did exist, and it was an arcade. It's gone. What do you want me to say? Like,
yeah.
But I felt weird knowing that those things aren't going to be talked about. So I really wanted to give a holistic overview, and what that meant was blowing up some of the smaller attractions and scaling down some of the larger attractions as far as how much I talked about them. Because this is not supposed to replace a Defunctland video. Right. So I've done a 12-minute video on Alien Encounter. In the book, it's like a page, because go watch the video. Don't want to trample my own content. I'm not like a Walmart that opens a Walmart right next to another Walmart. But
so you've been to the state of Maryland.
Yes. No, to the United States of America. Right. So, but yeah, so I was like, I want to give some of these smaller attractions. I want to give a holistic, because I'm a very completionist kind of person, if I'm using that word correctly. That I love having a holistic. I don't want there to be things left out, which is why my videos are so long now, even though they probably don't need to be. But I want that full overview. I want that closure on one park, and that's what really intrigued me on doing the book. And yeah, so that's kind of just that note of, hey, you should extend the brand into this area, and then be like, well, I could do that with the Magic Kingdom specifically. Also, Magic Kingdom, why I tackled that specifically, I should probably mention that, is because it's the park that interests me a lot. I think it's the most interesting to me other than Epcot, and it wouldn't have made sense as Epcot. And I mentioned this on Twitter, and people are going crazy. But I essentially said on Twitter that I'm tired of hearing Disneyland get so much praise for its history, and it was open 16 years longer than the Magic Kingdom, with a lot of boring stuff. Pack mules, I did a video on it, took me 2 minutes. It's boring. Like, there's a lot of those and I don't want to degrade them, but they were placeholders. And right. So I find the Magic Kingdom so much more fascinating as a compelling storyline that I don't really talk about too much in the book, just me personally. One, I tackled it because there is that lack of 16 years of history, so it's much easier to tackle as far as my first book. From a logistic standpoint, it would be wrong to jump in on Disneyland right away. And also, it's the most visited theme park in the world, so that was an obvious choice. And also, what I was saying earlier, which is just the Magic Kingdom's production and creation is so much more compelling to me because, I mean, if you're looking just at the storylines, like take all East Coast, West Coast bias out of it, or which one you prefer, Disneyland's like worst day ever on opening day, that like few hours where, you know, the heels that some females wore sunk into the pavement is not nearly as compelling as Walt Disney dying 3 years before you open the park, and then a bunch of Imagineers that have been there for decades saying, what do we do? That is a more compelling starting point for a story than, so Disney had this idea, he was looking at a carousel at a fairground or wherever it was, and he said, I'm going to build a theme park, and then he did. So imagine it, so and just because it was the most visited theme park, that's kind of why I chose that. So
actually, my favorite parts of the book was your Main Street, talking about those smaller attractions and making that space for them. So I'm glad you brought that up because I love seeing those pictures. Like there's that famous photo every time Steve Martin has an interview, he talks about how he was a magician, worked in the magic shop on Main Street in Disneyland. But when I see those pictures of what those storefronts used to look like or what used to be inside, I want that. It's actually, I want some of the smaller stuff more. I like the atmosphere, but all I've ever known on Main Street is the 6-store long
emporium.
Yeah. The giant emporium, and if you walk too long in it, you come out on the other side of Main Street. No, I'm just kidding. But
Pretty much.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, it's all connected, and it is unfortunate that a lot of those things are gone. Disneyland that would have also been hard to tackle because I kind of give up halfway through the Main Street USA chapter. Like I don't give up, but I looked at every single thing that was on there and I was like, there's no way I'm listing all this. It was very small stuff. So like the hat store had a name change.
Right.
It went from the hat store to hat store without the. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I kind of list all, the things, but I also go in depth on some of the more interesting stuff. The stuff that's still there, especially the Penny Arcade, I gave it its own tab, Defunctland file, as it's referred to in the book, because you can still go see some of those as they basically just scattered them. So, so stuff like that is really fun. It's fun to come, and also in that chapter, the Walt Disney Story, which was behind what is now where basically Mickey does his meet and greet now. With the owl, that was like, what? Like I had no idea. Even if I was around during the time that was there, I would have never gone back there. So just stuff like that.
So why don't you talk to us about that publishing process you brought up before?
Oh my gosh, do you have 2 hours? No. So well, it's still going on, so fingers crossed. But essentially, publishing is a nightmare if you're me, because I'm not smart with publishing. I shouldn't say that. I should say that I did not realize how much it was going to entail. And I knew it was going to entail a lot. So I really hyped up my expectations. I was like, this is going to be hard. I kept telling myself, you're going to learn a lot. It's going to be very difficult. And hopefully at the end you'll have a book. And so I really tried to make myself realize, you know what? This is not going to be an easy process. What I should have been saying is, don't do this. This is not something you should do. This is not a good use of time. What ended up, so I decided, well, I'm going to write a book. And so that was around Thanksgiving. And so I wrote the book and I was done by, I think, with the up to chapters 7 and 8. So up until that point, I had all fleshed out as much as I did. And then I was like, all right, I got my manuscript. It's time to start getting illustrators and an artist. Ingram Jenkins and Andrew Benny were my artists, and they are amazing. Please hire them if you are someone that needs to hire someone for anything. But mainly for art. They're just amazing people. Ingram did the chapter and cover art, so all those wonderful cartoon, very energetic action style big pages they did. And oh my gosh. I mean, I wish I would have recorded our Skype calls, because I would get on Adobe Illustrator and take the brush tool and with my mouse just kind of was like, okay, so I kind of want a guy here. And then I would draw a circle. And then I was like, I kind of want this up here. And then the next day they would deliver the art piece and it was all fleshed out, colored and perfect. And I was like, oh my gosh. And they're incredible. So, and then Andrew, holy cow, he did a lot of illustrations for this book.
Can I take a moment to describe the illustrations for our listeners? Just because I know the book's not out yet.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, no problem. No, one of our questions was about the artwork, so I'm glad to hear more about it. So within each chapter, you have your figurehead guy who's supposed to represent the reader, but he's accompanied by some familiar faces like Mr. Toad, Skippy, the Timekeeper, recognizable from attractions that are now within Defunctland. And you're kind of venturing through each of the lands of Magic Kingdom. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so the reader character, well, at the beginning of the book, I tell you to grow your hair out, and so the reader character, it has long hair. I tell you to basically create the costume that the reader has, and the reader is supposed to be raceless and supposed to be genderless, and you should be able to put yourself into that character. We tried our best, but that's very difficult to do for everything. So it ended up being a long-haired person that you never see from the front. So hopefully you can project yourself onto this person. And with that, yeah, so they go through the Magic Kingdom and they basically pick up the characters as I talk about them. And if you could see the art, it would make a lot more sense about what I'm saying. They encounter them. So a good example is in the Tomorrowland chapter, there's a big art piece at the beginning where you are on the Astro Orbiter, but in a kind of ghost spirit way, you see Skippy, Sir, and Timekeeper on an Astrojet or Starjet, and they're behind you, and you're looking at them, and so you find them, and then you go into Fantasyland and you find Mr. Toad, and so on and so on and so on.
And it just builds. By the end, there's illustrations of the reader with all of them. They just keep following you around.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, so that was just I'm really glad we did that. I should give a lot of credit to Ingram, just because of the way they can show movement in their art it's brilliant. So it's a cartoon style, but it's not overly cartoon. Although the entire process I kept telling them, make Skippy's eyes bigger. I need Skippy to be the most adorable thing in the world.
Yeah,
but they did a great job.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm looking at the illustration of the reader and Skippy having a standoff in Liberty Square with so they've got pistols drawn and they're facing Kermit the Frog, what was that, Briar Rabbit, and
the Country Bear or something.
Yeah, the Country Bear, and you got pistols drawn like you're in the Old West. So you're in between Frontierland and Liberty Square. I think that one was one of my favorites. And Skippy, you're right, he has these big giant eyes, like he's like, oh no, are we gonna win?
And he's shooting. He accidentally fires his gun.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's actually going up towards
Timekeeper or something. Or
he's
Sir.
like, oh no.
So yeah, just the different personalities that Ingram was able to show was just so well done and consistent. Timekeeper is a very kind soul, and so he's always smiling, and Sir is grumpy, and Skippy's adorable, and Minnie Moo is clueless because it's an actual cow. So just all that stuff. Just great job. And then the illustrations within the book are just more detail oriented. Some of them are kind of more, like the plane was not as detailed, but some of Andrew's art, like the Timekeeper, even the hippo for the Jungle Cruise, I was like, this is really detailed. And I kept saying, like, this hippo was amazing. And he was like, it's just a hippo. What are you so caught up about? I'm like, but it's amazing. And so, so the publishing process, they were great. Both of them were awesome. My editor's great. My designer's great. Meredith and Philip, and then so I got to the point where I created this. A lot of this book was based off of two things. One, it's a parody of the guidebooks that are out there. There's 1,000 of them. I have been familiar with the unofficial guide. Len Testa does a great job, and his entire team of creating those unofficial guides. But there's also a bunch of others that have kind of spawned off of that, which are also all great on their own merits. But I wanted to create a kind of parody for that. But as far as stylistic influence, a lot of it came from Stephen Colbert's old books. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those, just interior wise. It's very there's a lot going on, essentially, very colorful. What I did not realize, what I did realize, but I didn't realize it was going to be this much of a problem. I told myself, well, that's going to be something you need to look out for. But I didn't say, hey, stop doing this book, which I should have. So whenever you have all these art pieces, and you're trying to get a book to fit a certain way, and you want all the pages to be full, it's not as simple as just making the art pieces bigger or making them smaller or doing this, especially when you have full page art that only works on the right side of the page and doesn't work on the left side of the page. And so all these things got to the point where Philip, my designer, bless his soul, sent back the first draft, and I was like, oh no, because there was pages that, just the way I wrote it, I was like, well, I'm gonna write it so where it can't go any other way. So it was after we got the design process all figured out, we did the Indiegogo, and well, actually we did the Indiegogo first, and then we had some design issues. I ended up writing probably another 5,000 to 10,000 words of the book, if you can believe that.
Wow.
I took a lot out, and then I put a lot back in. My fact checker, Allison from WaltDatedWorld.com. If you love Defunctland, there's an entire website for just Walt Disney World. It's brilliant. It's super in depth. It's text based, but it's great. She does a great job. She was my fact checker, which I mentioned her multiple times in the book.
Yeah.
And so, but just stuff like that. And then I went back again and just fleshed out some stuff and added some pacing issues, fixed up some, we'll probably talk about the end 2 chapters eventually, probably after a spoiler warning. But those I had to make sure that you're translating this well, because the entire book is told in second person.
Yeah.
Also, huge mistake.
I liked
apparently
it.
Books are supposed to be. Okay, good. That's great.
It's non-traditional, but it's kind of like you're this omnipresent narrator in a way. So it felt like, you're along for the ride. There's the little camera in the book, as you say. But I thought that was a unique approach, because I feel like a lot of guidebooks are just kind of dry and here's the facts. But as you said, it's a parody. And the fact that you have this relationship with the reader and are providing directions along the way was a nice touch.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was, and I mean, a couple of times I mentioned this in the past. So I had to add little traps for the reader to where I would say something with the purpose of making you think a certain thing, so that I can then respond to your thought as if you had said it out loud and I'd heard it through the microphone.
Yes. One moment that I had is when you mentioned, "Please stand clear of the doors." And then you're like, you heard that in the voice, didn't you? And I was like, I was reading this on the beach last week, and I literally laughed out loud. It's like, I totally did. I did say that in the voice in my head.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. So like the stuff like that. I'm glad that that's working. Another time I say, I say something like, they're going to replace it with that Up themed simulator that they've been talking about, and I was like, I didn't even say anything. That's not even real, but you thought it might be for a second, which says something. So just stuff like that is like tiny little traps to make you feel it's a gimmick, but it makes you feel as though you're at least have some sort of response, because the book, as you mentioned at the very beginning, I say there's a camera and a microphone in this book. They're too small to see, so don't look for them. But it's so the idea is that I can see and tell everything, and I'm just like typing wildly on a keyboard. I'm the guy in the chair. So yeah, but that was difficult for the end scenes and throughout, just to make sure that I can't just be like, here you are, now you're here, where are you, now you're here. Like, I had to add some stuff in between just for pacing. But the design process, to finish up on this tangent, is that at the very end of it all, I read it and I was like, we did so good. I'm so glad we did that. I'm glad that I never told myself not to, because I really enjoy the final product. I hope other people are going to enjoy it, but I am very proud, and I'm just so happy to be surrounded by all these people that are much smarter than me, as far as Ingram and Andrew and Meredith and Philip and Allison, and just like, I was like, if I didn't have them, this would be the worst book of all time. So really just grateful that people cared about it enough, liked me enough, trusted me, and also gave me their talent, because it's just, really happy with that.
Yeah, your crowdsourcing fundraiser on Indiegogo, didn't that fill like within 24 hours? You met the goal?
Yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, audience reception has been awesome, and I had to push back the release date, which is so disappointing. Like, as far as the early bird, by a weekend or 2 weeks, which happens just with print, but print delays that I've experienced. But it's off to the printers. It's out of my hands. And yeah, so I just hope it goes well. I hope it all works out. I'm going to be here, slapping books into cardboard for a while, but I'm not doing all I sold like 1,100. I'm not doing all of them.
Okay.
I should say I'm only doing about 200. But yeah, so it's super exciting. But it was a very roller coaster of a process, and I'm probably understating it. But again, I really happy that everyone's stuck with me.
Yeah.
And we created a great product.
And it is. So let's dive into the book itself. We talked about, your voice throughout. What I liked was that you're not afraid to express your opinions about attractions, even some of Walt Disney World's most beloved classics. I know the book isn't in everyone's hands, so this might apply to your YouTube channel or podcast as well. But how do you think your candor has been received by your audience? I know you probably have that kind of live on YouTube, but you'll get it in a delayed fashion in the book.
Right, which I mentioned at the beginning, which I'll probably regret saying that I'll receive praise through 3.5-star Amazon reviews, because I'll get a lot of those now. But it's just the me being so aggressive about my opinions is kind of what I think draws people in part to the extension of the brand. Defunctland itself, the actual series and Defunct TV I've kind of receded me out of that, my personality, to appears more objective. But there's still just enough where people, I hope, are seeing those videos and saying, well, I wonder what this guy thinks about this attraction, really. Other than, Club Disney, which stuff like that, like Superstar Limo, I don't hold back. But other things I do. And so that honesty, it's one of those, I think that because I recognize and I appreciate the medium so much, and I have so much passion for this, that even if my opinions are terrible and uneducated, my passion doesn't turn people off, hopefully. It just makes them want to engage, which is the best when you're running something like I'm running. Is at the end of the day, they know that I'm not, because we're all in such a tight niche. I'm saying like this is so important, and just by acknowledging that what everyone loves, whether it be Disneyland or just theme parks in general, is so important, and we have built this audience, and I'm like, it's such an important medium, it's such an important thing. Even if they don't agree with what I'm saying, I think that can still draw them in, and still, they'll say their own opinions, which go for it, right? I said mine, go ahead and say yours. But just the fact that I treat it so seriously, and in the book I do. I mean, I'm very, aggressive about how much I love and how much I hate certain things, and just to have that passion. And I think, say it's okay to be so passionate about something that from the outside to outsiders seems so silly is kind of what makes this community so great.
I totally agree. There were moments where I wanted to fight with you reading this book. But I think what you just said, it starts a conversation that after I took a second, there's one part we're in Frontierland and you're telling us we're not going to ride Big Thunder Mountain. And I had a conniption for a moment because I love Big Thunder Mountain. I was like, how do you not ride Big Thunder Mountain in Frontierland? Like, that's the point. But it does start a conversation, and I see that on your Twitter page. I read that tweet about Disneyland versus Magic Kingdom, and there was definitely, you didn't have to chime in at all. People just ran with it, and it's created a good platform in that way to get people to start talking about something we're all passionate about.
Absolutely, and it's a lot of my main goals as big goals for what I can do, what I can bring to the table as a creator. It's not some sort of like crazy mission. It's simply just maybe bring closure. Probably not, but maybe. I'm trying. But mostly just, affirm people's opinions and affirm people's passion, and also just bring to light what I think is the Imagineers, which I think are the most unappreciated, unrecognized artists of all time. Like that, just a group of people that created these. I mean, authors are sensationalized, like filmmakers especially are idolized. Musicians, don't even get me started. Imagineers are the biggest rock stars and BAs on the planet, and I mean they just don't get the recognition they deserve. So if anything I can do is just get people looking up and learning more about these brilliant people, that's enough for me. And I think that's another part of what makes the conversation, an overlying kind of idea, so much easier, even when I'm saying things that people disagree with.
So I want to ask you about this character that comes up in a book, in your book a lot. You bring up Pluto a few times. And we want to know, We want to know, what is your love for the good boy?
Pluto, it's because he is and always will be a good boy, is why I love him so much. Well, one, I think Pluto gets not enough recognition because we are in such a dog-loving culture, which some people are tired of. But I mean, who doesn't love dogs? Even if you're allergic to dogs, you're upset because you want to pet dogs. I think that, but my main fascination with Pluto, if I had to give you a specific reason other than he's awesome, is that he's the only character, I think, out of all of the Disney characters that looks better in walk-around form than in animation form.
Oh.
So, like, if you imagine Pluto as an animation, he's like, oh yeah, he's cool. But if you, as a walk-around, he is adorable. Have you ever seen pictures of Pluto meet actual dogs?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Actually,
service dogs.
my friend Minnie has been there next to him as he's met service dogs.
Isn't it adorable?
Oh my gosh, it's priceless. You can find YouTube videos of Pluto meeting dogs, and it never gets old.
It's amazing. See, you don't get that with Clarabelle. So
it raises the interesting aspect of Pluto's a dog, but Goofy's a dog, and I liked you have kind of in between.
I was just going to bring that up.
Chapters, these little Defunctland seminars, and one was about Grandma Duck's duck farm and kind of the implications, and you raised lots of questions there. So that was a fun part of the book.
Well, yeah, that was I talk about that. These kind of seminars are part joke, part if I need to say something serious that, and a couple times I do it outside of those, but I do have opinions about the Disney parks and their in any medium you should be criticizing how you represent certain things. That one was just a joke, but I do talk about like Song of the South, and I talk about some of those, and Liberty Square within that chapter, and some of those more difficult things. But the seminars were a good way to get in there. But yeah, that seminar, the animal ethics seminar, that went through so many revisions of just me trying to be. I had so many more questions that I just had to cut down, because like the questions are like, what, like, is there a court case? If there's a court case, what is it called? And like all those things. And I was like, okay, cut these down. But yeah, those kind of little full pages, I hope, were fun and a nice break from the grueling, the longer fact portions.
So speaking of the facts, I know at the end of your book you kind of list some resources, but would you mind sharing for our listeners as well, kind of like your research process for this book? I know you said you had a fact checker and everything.
Right. So Allison from Walt Dated World, if you're going to go anywhere, go to waltdatedworld.com. I'm saying Walt Dated World. Okay. DATED. Great website.
Not a
has
dating
everything.
website.
I mean, not a dating website yet. I'm trying to convince Allison. That's more of like a breakup forum, like We Dated. Walt Dating World is the Tinder of Disney World, which is terrible. The AP Tinder, the annual pass holder Tinder, would be the worst thing ever.
Oh my gosh, that could be a spin-off podcast all on its own.
So my resources for this are very difficult because what I'm saying happened and is true. It's not, whenever you cite sources, sometimes people find things, or sometimes people, like, it's a very specific source. But my thing is kind of like, okay, this is when the attraction opened, this is what was inside of it, this is when it closed. I can't say, oh well, that was Jim Hill that told me that. Like, yeah, he might have been the first one I heard it from, but if I went to extinctdisney.com, it's also there. If I go to Allison's website, it's also there. So at the end, I list a bunch, and I mean, just Extinct Disney, as I mentioned, Walt Dated World, Omnilux, which is Widen Your World, is a part of the Omnilux.net site, I believe, is great. Even the Disney Wikia, which is not a Wikipedia page, it's a fleshed out fan page, is a great launching point. So Wikia, like the Disney Wikia, there's always more stuff there. Even, I mean, some of the Wikipedia pages have good like references at the bottom, but those are so ever changing. I never use those. But Disney Wikia is left untouched largely after being edited. So that's a great fan. Also, just Mouse Planet. Just a lot of other stuff, just like that. Jim Hill's podcast, as I mentioned, great source for some of the more behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And just a lot of stuff like that. And so at the end, I do list a ton. Everything I wrote down every time I had a specific source, and I hope I didn't miss any time I put some. But every single time while I was writing the manuscript, I was like, okay, that's a new source. Slap it into that folder, and then I just put those in a random order at the end, just to give hopefully all those sites some more recognition. So please go check those out, because a lot of this information was preserved by those sites.
I know that Emily, as a history teacher, certainly appreciates you citing your sources.
Always cite your sources. And I appreciate that you didn't cite anything from Wikipedia. Trying to get that across to my high schoolers is still a challenge.
Yeah, Wikipedia is not a valid source. It's a great, like, as you probably
the jumping off point.
It's yes, exactly. And the wiki gets a little bit more leeway, but still, if it's editable by everyone, don't use it as your only source. So yeah, but So I was just citing those sources, and I went through my head. I was like, I could cite every source, but after a while, I was like, it literally like, if, for example, Magic Kingdom opened on October 1st, 1971. Like, I'm not going to credit that to Allison. So it's just, it was a very difficult, weird thing. Also because it wasn't necessarily, I can't fact check it 100%. Like, it's just, this is as much as I can get there. So if you have any, and I say this at the beginning of the book, if you have any complaints or any fact checks, please contact Rob from Rob Plays That Game on YouTube. He runs a Disney website. He'll be happy to answer any questions. He had no involvement in this book, but I'm sure he'd love to hear you complain about my book.
It feels like the Jungle Cruise skipper, where you're like, if you've enjoyed this ride, I'm Kevin. If you haven't, I'm Rob.
Right, exactly. I am Rob from Rob Plays.
So speaking of your research process, what was the most challenging section of your book to write, and then what is the most enjoyable?
Well, I shouldn't say challenging. None of it was challenging. As you know, writing a book's super easy. Everyone should do it. Yeah. And as far as research goes, there was no challenging part, because, with research on more fleshed out videos, finding those more minute details, those kind of tiny little instances, or getting a bigger story, that's difficult. Getting an overview of an attraction, which is what the book is, it's an overview of every attraction that's no longer there. That wasn't as hard. I should say that we can get in this after we do a spoiler warning, but I assume, but the end parts of the book, which I'm not going to say anything about right now, but it's just that was researched, like, very detailed. Despite its nature, it has research in it, and that was more difficult, just because of the nature of it. But of course, I'll get into that. But yes, my answer would be those last two chapters where we we're not just talking about extinct rides anymore. We're talking about something else. So that was more difficult, I should say, if that answers your question.
We are going to get there.
Okay, great.
We will.
I assume we will do a spoiler cutoff at some point.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Just in general, so we touched on it a little about why you approached Magic Kingdom, and at the beginning of the book, you kind of say, this is why we're going to Magic Kingdom, and you talk about Epcot and Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom. Do you have any plans to incorporate them to their own guide, or are you just, like, completely scarred by this experience? And you're like, this is it.
No. I don't want to sound like I'm scarred. The experience, I'm scarred by every experience. I get myself in over my head literally every day of my life. The moment I walk out the door, it's just chaos. I like to think of myself as like the Kermit of my life, where I'm like the eye of the hurricane. There's chaos going around me, but I'm not. I always cause it for myself. No, but this is a great experience. I really would like to do it again. It's just a time thing, and it's also there. This is a very. It's a medium-sized guide, a short novel. Mm-hmm. And that's because I didn't have much more to talk about, and I was not going to bore anybody. Or reduce content that I could have later on for the series. If I were to do, let's say, Disneyland, that is going to be a much more difficult research process and a much more difficult book to write. If I was going to do Epcot, I would have to change the format a little bit, because I'd have to extend out those rides, because there's so much defunct in Epcot. But those little experiences, the Magic Kingdom, like the Main Street USA, you lose that. You lose a lot of those, just even down to, the Goofy's Country Jamboree or whatever it was. Like stuff like that you don't get all of that at Epcot. And even less so at Animal Kingdom and Hollywood Studios. There's nothing really there. everyone complains like, oh, they closed down all of Hollywood Studios stuff, but it's still not enough for a book. But I could see myself doing Disneyland. I could see myself doing Universal Studios Florida. I could see myself doing Epcot. Epcot's the one that I can get to most from a motivation and, because this book, as we're going to get into, does have a kind of overarching theme and message, whether that came through or not. But this Epcot is clear to me what that one would be. It would be, how do you tackle a park that was about the future and then it now has given up on that. So like the park itself gave up on its own future, which is very difficult or very, very depressing, I should say, that it's like, oh, we're gonna have a park about the future. And then it's like, well, what happens when basically the future has given up on us? So apparently
the future is here.
Yeah, right. I guess
it was.
I guess. Well, I guess they just. I just like the future was just like, I guess they just want Guardians of the Galaxy roller coasters. I guess that's what they wanted all along. They didn't want to live underwater. They didn't want to live in the desert or Mesa Verde. They just wanted Guardians of the Galaxy. They wanted Ratatouille dark rides. So.
All right. So, okay. Speaking of dark rides and all that, let's transition a little bit before we get to our spoiler warning and the creative end of your book. We want to ask you some stuff about defunct attractions and the parks. So if you could bring back one defunct attraction from your book to Magic Kingdom, what would it be?
Oof. I want to say I don't know. I think I don't. That's such a difficult question. I've answered it a bunch, and I always forget my answer.
It changes each podcast.
It does. So here's yours.
Yes.
I think Alien Encounter. Right, but it would need to be updated a lot because I would never want to see them reopen it for people to call it lame, because it wasn't lame, but it probably wouldn't work as well today because everyone's desensitized to everything. So you'd have to actually scare the bejesus out of them for real. Again, you'd have to up it. But I don't know, because Alien Encounter doesn't deserve to be brought back to the Magic Kingdom. It just doesn't fit. And so I always think Mickey Mouse Revue was such a weird attraction, and I think that if they would have it's literally like IPs throwing up on other IPs. Like, I mean, they could think about if Mickey Mouse Revue was still there. There'd be a Frozen animatronic put in immediately after the movie came out. There'd be a Moana animatronic immediately after the movie came out. There'd be Wreck-It Ralph 2 probably.
It would become a 2-hour show.
Right, exactly. But that would be so interesting if they would have kept that up and just updated the animatronics. They could just add an animatronic and advertise, the crap out of it. And so, I mean, from a business perspective, I think that would fit very well with their current idea of let's just throw all the characters in everywhere we can. Of course, I'm literally just going to name every attraction I talk about in my book, so please stop me.
Well, this
Bring
is
them all
similar, but a little different. Is there a Defunctland file that you think was the biggest loss to Magic Kingdom? Like, maybe not necessarily what you would bring back, but wow, like, that was such a disappointment to see go away and disrupted kind of the theming in any way.
Enchanted Tiki Room under new management. No, I'm just kidding.
I was there the day that it caught on fire, but I wasn't in there. So it was our college winter break, and we were in Magic Kingdom that day. It was me. I pulled the plug. No, my dad had texted me, and he's like, was there a fire? He had seen it on a forum or something, and we had done it that morning, and then by the afternoon it was no longer there. So one of the last guests to experience under new management.
Was the weirdest move by Disney. They're like, fine, we'll do the old one. Right. Like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
I think really unexpected. Like, they don't typically go back to something that they took away.
Apparently, you have to burn all the new parts. So if you burn Stitch's animatronic, technically, we might be able to get Alien Encounter back. But I don't know. As far as the most impactful to the park, I couldn't give you a Horizons example, because like the closure of Horizons was the end of Epcot. It just was, Journey into Imagination, I believe, was already gone by that point. Well, the second time, I should say, Horizons closed. And so it's just very difficult to give a one specifically. I think 20,000 Leagues represents a huge change in the park. But the park itself, honestly hasn't gone through a major transformation when you can look at the other, like, other than Animal Kingdom, which has just been there, and then they, tacked on Avatar. Epcot has completely reverted and lost its way. Hollywood Studios is right now going back on everything it's ever been. Magic Kingdom's just kind of there. It's the most visited. They add a new attraction here and there. But there was really nothing that represented that park, just based on the nature of it, right? Because it was always the Disneyland copy. It was funny. I went back to watch, and part of this is what sparked my tweet about, like, hey, stop hating on Magic Kingdom. And I'm saying it's a copy, isn't hating on it. It's just the case. But I went back and watched the Progress City, or the Epcot film from Disney, the one he filmed 3 days before he had lung surgery, which, oh my gosh, I just a quick mention here. Walt Disney, his whole idea for Epcot, I did a very short live stream that we took down because it made no sense and we couldn't hear us, I think, with Disney Dan, where we were just like, I think the title was like, Walt Disney had no idea what he was talking about, because he was just spouting things and then he died. Which is how we should all go. Before you die, say a bunch of random stuff and make your family members feel obligated to carry it on. Anyways, but in this Epcot film, he's like, all right, so this is Epcot and there's Magic Kingdom, and then this is Epcot. But when he says there's the Magic Kingdom, and he kind of references and throws his hand up to the thing that he obviously has to do and that he doesn't really want to, he shows the exact map of Disneyland. It's the same thing. If you go back, you can even I think even up to the point where what's different? I think there's even the lagoon where in Tomorrowland, in that film, which Magic Kingdom doesn't have. So the extent that I think Walt Disney cared about the Magic Kingdom being a clone was, just throw it up there. Just take Disneyland's map, cut it out, throw it up there. So what was I talking about? I was on a roll, and then I remembered that Walt Disney just spouted a bunch of stuff before he died.
What attraction do we think was taken from that? It was a big loss.
Oh, right.
Magic
So yes, absolutely. Okay, back on track. Still don't know, but I'm back. It is the Disneyland. It's the Disneyland. This is the first new Disneyland park, and so its identity has always been, it is Disney. It's the place to go, and because of its location and because it's in the biggest resort, it is just the go-to. Which I think more recently it's been ignored. The work that they've done is really great, but they don't have to try as hard to get people to go, and that's lack of motivation from executives. But that also means that they don't close stuff that often, compared to, I shouldn't say that. They don't close big rides that often because capacity would just go kaput.
Oh, yeah.
So to summation, I think 20,000 Leagues is a good, if you had to pinpoint the turning point from the park into its now, let's throw IPs everywhere, that's a good one. But other than that, I don't think there's a huge Horizons representation or a great movie ride for Hollywood Studios of the closed down.
No, that makes sense to me. So how has researching defunct attractions influenced your relationship with the Disney parks? I know you said you kind of went a little bit as a kid, but not every year. But certainly, it's become a big part of your life in a way.
Right. And Disney is... my relationship with the Disney parks specifically, going to them is a lot more interesting. You get a more fleshed out experience if you know the history of anywhere you go. I mean, you could go to any, European country or anywhere in the world, really. And if you don't know the history, you're just looking at old buildings that look like they should be replaced, because they're broken. But they're like, that's history. You should probably look into it, which is why I'm such a terrible traveler of the world, because all I do is research theme parks. But when I go to theme parks, I turn to my more well-versed friends, and I'm like, this is why this is important. It's just when I go to the Disney parks, and any park, Universal, any park, it's just it's a different experience because just knowing, just thinking about it, like when you if you're more knowledgeable on the movie, you're going to have a very different experience. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better, because if you can, and I'll go back to movies. Hopefully this makes sense. But whenever you're watching a movie and you know a lot about how movies are made, and you are very critical of movies, and you find yourself getting lost into a movie, it's 1,000 times more. It's more satisfying because your meter is different. Your scale of awareness, or your scale of critical thinking on that specific medium is so much larger that you can appreciate something way more because you're educated and you know so much, but you're not really thinking about it. So whenever I find myself getting lost and not thinking about what's around me, that's the most satisfying to me. And so that, happens less and less when I go to a park more often. But, when they change something, like even Pandora, when I went to the second time and I really appreciated Pandoran, I was like, wow, this is, I got so lost in that experience. I was like, I'm not even thinking about how this made. I'm not turning to my left and right to see the other people on their simulators. I'm just experiencing that. So like, you get a lot more appreciation, I think, out of it that way.
So you appreciate it in the present tense, but is there anything you're looking forward to adding to Defunctland in the future? Like, oh, I can't wait till this closes and I can go deep into its history.
Well, no. It's kind of like it's I don't know a good analogy. It's kind of like it's the different. Here's an analogy. I'm reading Jim Henson's biography right now. Check it out if you haven't.
We both have.
Great book.
Jim Henson went to University of Maryland, which is where we went to college.
Absolutely.
We have a statue of him on campus, so you're among the right people.
Right. Now, of course, that book is the completionist guide, right? Because it's everything. It's so great. A great book. I'm not done yet, so no spoilers. But I think he dies. But it's kind of like a biographist. What did I just say? An author of biographies. Sure. So if you're an author that writes biographies, it's kind of like saying, I can't wait until George Lucas dies so I can write entire life. Like it's just like, yeah, that'd be great for my content, but you don't want to see anything go away except for Stitch's Great Escape. But for the 99% of the part, you don't want to be like, yeah, I just can't wait till Steven Spielberg dies, because I don't want to release the book like before he dies.
That makes sense.
But yeah, okay, I hope that makes sense.
It does.
I don't want anybody
a good
to
analogy.
die.
Okay, maybe what if I rephrase it this way? What is one maybe from another park? Like, we are constantly seeing things close with, like, Great Movie Ride closed in the last year. Is there one from another park that you're looking forward, maybe not for your book, but in your blog or your podcast that you're itching to talk about?
No, and here's why. Because I think so much of, like, I understand why I should, right? But I think it's one of those things that I am such a, people, it's like you can't appreciate something until it's gone, or it's like you only want it because you can't have it. I fall into that so hard, where I'm like, Tower of Terror probably has a super interesting history, but who cares? Because it's still there. But right when it's gone, I was like, this is a disaster. Like, I never went to a Bugs Land, but then they started saying they were going to close it, and I'm on the front line saying, you will not close a Bugs Land. Heimlich's Choo Choo Train, spelled CHEW, is the best ride.
I've never experienced it, but yeah, once people started talking about it, I'm like,
book your trip now. You've got a week.
Right. Well,
school starts next week, Courtney.
Sorry.
Take your kids.
Oh, I wish.
So, but yeah, so I guess I should say that I'm just not interested because I'm so engaged. Like, my brain can only focus on so many things, and there's so much out there on defunct stuff that I'm just like, it's just zigzagging between the past, and I've never really entered the present, which I talk about in the book, right? And so that was fun, getting to actually go to the present and talk about some of the, because I do mention like Space Mountain. That's something that has a really interesting history, and I can only talk about it. I talk about it in the Euro Disney episode because that leads into the sequel to Space Mountain in Paris. And stuff like that's really fun, but there has to be a bigger catalyst of defunct to get me truly engaged.
No, that makes sense. So we're going to put the spoiler warning out here now. So maybe fast forward a little if you are...
Who knew a guide had spoilers?
Right? But it does, because you talk about this in a very creative way in your book. But I think in short, the question is, why do you think it's important to inform unknowing Disney fans about the extinct attractions and the evolution of the parks? But feel free to touch on how you did that in such a creative way, because I really enjoyed that part. I was like, this came out of nowhere.
It did. It took me by surprise.
Well, good. I'm glad. So essentially, when I'm writing, I'm such a story-oriented person rather than, even my videos, it's all about the story, right? I want to tell a narrative story. And that's part of what I think is so fascinating about documentaries, trying to do what I do with documentaries, and anybody does, not just me, of course, but with documentaries, is that I'm trying to fit a real thing that happened into a 3-act structure. Well, it's not supposed to do that. That's not how it played out. But to shove real life into 3 acts is always interesting to me. That said, I writing this guide, and I just couldn't figure out how to end it. How do you end a guide with so much character and so much nostalgia and so much even action and so much weight to it, and I'm so personal with you. What am I supposed to be by chapter 6? Just be like, well, that was Adventureland. Have a good day, everybody. Even doing, if I just cut out 7 and 8 and just did those last 3 pages of me talking to you at the end of the day, I don't think that would have been satisfying. So I went with just completely out of nowhere surprising. So essentially, if you should have read the book, so don't listen to this if you haven't. But if you didn't and you're still listening, you're naughty. But also, chapter 7, I take you into the utilidors, and chapter 8, you get arrested and go to the Orange County Jail. And then you meet Michael Eisner, and then he fights Bob Iger, and then you escape. So that sounds like it's out of nowhere, because it is. But I set it up throughout the book, of course. And if you go back and read, you'll notice like a few little tidbits there that hopefully ease you into it. And yeah, so it's just as far as the why, the overarching message is kind of why are extinct attractions so important. And in the book, I really get into this. It's, to me, just saying it right now, it's just because, like I said earlier, these are experiences that you can't experience again in any form that you were supposed to, unlike every other medium of art other than, musical theater by the original cast. Like, you're never going to probably see Hamilton with Daveed Diggs and Lin-Manuel again, and that is something to be said, and that's very disappointing. But even Hamilton, you can still put it on with different people, and it works just as well, and most times. And so it's just, I'm trying to rack my brain to find a type of art that is so engaging, is so popular, that one is underappreciated, and also 2 is so temporary, and that is so not just fascinating, and so just saddening, and so I try to tackle that at the end, and that's just kind of my main motivation, is just the nature of the art form, and especially how much character was, and that's the reason that I have those characters follow you throughout the adventure, is because I really want to hammer home that, like, these characters only exist in the park other than Iago and Zazu. These characters are only, like, Sir is not in any Disney movie. Skippy's not Minnie Moo is a cow. Well, she's dead. Like, I can write the Minnie Moo biography now. Minnie Moo, a life. Life is like a movie.
Oh.
No, okay, that's my
Oh my God,
terrible.
The number of cow references you could probably, that should be a goal. How many cow puns can you fit into this biography?
Good cow, bad mood. Okay, that's it. Anyways,
we just gave you your next book project.
Absolutely.
Start the Indiegogo
It's a direct
now.
sequel to this book. It's a direct sequel to this book with no connection to the last. Minnie Moo So Good She got her own spinoff. Anyways, but yeah, so those characters are fleshed out. They have personalities, that they have something interesting about them, and they only exist in the theme parks, and you don't get to explore them again, which is just, it's sad. So that's why I did it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. For our listeners who haven't read it, I know we were fortunate enough to have an advanced copy. Thank you very much. But where and when will this book be available?
It will be available hopefully November.
Okay.
And for, if you did the Indiegogo, hopefully end of October, early November. For non-rush orders, rush orders sometime in September, is when people are going to be getting it for the first time. And then, because it's one's flying here and the other is shipping on a ship, which is so weird because I always say shipping, but this is the first time I shipped something on a ship. It's literally a ship, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's why it's called shipping, because it used to be on boats. Well, I've never done it. But yeah, I've never
21st century problems.
Right. I'm living horizons. But yeah, so that it'll be available probably on Amazon, hopefully. If not, you'll find it. It'll be places.
I'm sure you will be able to share once it's more widely.
Hopefully you will. Right. Yeah. Hopefully you will see it so often of click to buy that you will not only not have a problem finding it, that you will hate the advertisements for it. So.
And then our closing question that we like to ask authors is, what would be your Disney book recommendation for listeners?
Okay, I've read one.
That's fine. We'll take it.
Does Jim Henson's biography?
It does.
Yes.
We want to cover it. So.
Well, yeah, do that. Bring me back for that episode.
Okay.
Because I've read it. But I will come back absolutely to talk about Jim Henson's biography. But what I would recommend truly is Dream It, Do It by Marty Sklar.
That was our very first episode. So good.
Well, there you go. It's really great for Disney fans. I would say that he is unfortunately passed on. The book, you need to know a lot about Disney history in order to follow it, because it jumps around and it's very difficult to follow. It's not a coherent story. He just kind of wrote what he was thinking at the time, I'm guessing, and just edited and threw it out there. But what he did write is very interesting and from a very interesting perspective. So although you should probably that should not be the first thing you read as a Disney fan, if you are very well versed and nuanced already, every little tidbit is just fascinating.
Yeah, we absolutely enjoyed it. And if you don't mind, we like to share what we kind of thought of as related resources to your own book. So my pick was a book called The Walt Disney World That Never Was, Stories Behind the Amazing Imagineering Dreams That Never Came True. So whereas we just explored Defunctland today, this is about things like Western River Expedition or Beastly Kingdom. And it's a fun look at things that were announced but never actually came to fruition.
And then, of course, we're going to plug your Defunct YouTube series, that if listeners, there's other attractions out there or other theme parks. He covers so much. I re-listened to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea today to prepare for this, but there's so much out there. Definitely check out his YouTube series and other podcasts to find out about other distinct attractions.
Do you want to go ahead and plug your social media, where else people can find you aside from what we've mentioned?
How have you not found me?
Right.
No, yeah.
Well,
I feel like I could have guessed your Skype name if I had to.
No. Right, exactly. No, to the audience, how have you not found me? I have people comment every day, stop recommending this to me, like YouTube. But the youtube.com/Defunctland, twitter.com/Defunctland, facebook.com/Defunctland. You get the idea. /Defunctland, tinder.com/Defunctland. So you can Tinder, swipe right if that's the right way on like 20,000 Leagues, and swipe left on Stitch. Am I saying this right?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong people.
Okay. You're a school teacher. You use Tinder, right? No, I'm just kidding. Your students are listening. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah. So hopefully, if this is not the first, hopefully if you haven't heard of Defunctland, that'll be easy to find. And I'm really sorry if you start getting recommendations on all the other stuff. Definitely watch the newer stuff if you don't want really bad voiceovers. So that's my plug.
And you can find us at Book of the Mouse on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me, Courtney, at Courtney_Guth on Twitter and at Great Guthsby on Instagram.
And you can find me both on Twitter and Instagram as Emily_McD.
Awesome. And Kevin, do you have a closing quote for us by any chance to share? Anything related to your book or something you like in general as a Disney quote?
Well, since I am listening to Jim Henson's biography right now, and I mentioned it like multiple times, my favorite Muppets quote is the end, which is at the end of the Muppet movie, which is "Life's like a movie, write your own ending," which I just think is a beautiful quote, and that's my pick right off the since just because of the relation to that biography, and I think it embodies some of my call to action at the end of my book. But definitely go check out the book so you can hear my actual quote, how I ended.
And we will have you back for Jim Henson at some point for sure, since you offered. We'd love to discuss that one with you.
Absolutely. Yes, please. And I'll be much more, and then I can interview you too.
Ooh.
And I can just sit back and just ask a question. What do you think about this? I can just sit back and listen and have.
Well, you're definitely among friends if you want to talk Muppets.
Great. Yes. Okay, good. I mean, yes, I would have. If you would have said no, we would have immediately stopped this podcast, and I would have been like, "Here's why the Muppets are great," and I'm so upset that you said they weren't.
No, we
yes. Anyway, so
absolutely love them. So thank you so much. We had a pleasure listening to you. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for answering our questions.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Book of the Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.